Hey, what's up, everybody? It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. As I have been doing, I'm just making videos on every rumor person that could be going to the Lakers or, that kind of thing. Some other teams too, but mostly my team because I know more about my team than anyone else's, obviously. Kind of just want to talk about Blake Griffin, what I expect from him if he were to come to the Lakers, other options for himself as well, because obviously there are other suitors. But he is definitely somebody I expect to be bought out or traded, more than likely bought out, sometime next couple of weeks or so, maybe even sooner than that. Um, Blake Griffin is a player that I really like, have always really liked. Unfortunately, he played for the Clippers, which is a gift and a curse because I hate the Clippers, but I was able to watch the Clippers a lot, so I know his game. Especially back then, I hadn't developed that much of a vitriol, hatred, disdain for that team up until that point, but it was beginning around that era. When they got him, that's when they started changing for the worse, as far as I'm concerned. But nevertheless, he was a player that I liked before that. I was a fan of his at Oklahoma. He was just an electrifying talent with extraordinary ability to get off the floor. I mean, just completely extraordinary. And as a player who's now obviously played most of his career, developed, became who he was going to become. He's underrated. That's the conclusion I've come to about Blake Griffin. He's an underrated overall basketball player. He's made some All-Star teams, but just because he played for the Clippers for the most of his career, and then they sent him off to Detroit after signing a max contract, which I thought was one of the worst things I had seen happen to a superstar talent. You know, they well that's layered because obviously he signed a big contract. That's not one of the worst things you'll ever hear, right? I mean, before a guy to commit to a franchise, particularly a franchise in a big city like Los Angeles, the same city he was drafted in, give him his all, pledge his allegiance to the Clippers, arguably the greatest player they ever had up until that point anyway, and they just send him off after promising him the franchise basically. And it wasn't enough to ship him off. They had to ship him off to like the bowels of the NBA. The Pistons are one of the more, poorly run franchises in the league. Up until that point, I think they've done some good things lately, but that's at the point where they made that trade, they were like they were the toilet bowl of the league, or one of three toilet bowl teams. So when you talk about them, I think personally the Pistons have done a fantastic job given what they've been having to deal with, losing picks several years back, not really drafting as well as they would like to, having a whole year where they didn't have any really real young talent. Like last year they had Speed, they had Sadiq Bey, and neither one of those guys were playing. Everybody else on their team lacked upside, lacked youth. They were just a very, very old team. But they've revamped their entire thing, and they look pretty good. Even though they're not making the playoffs, you can see the future is bright for them. And them not making the playoffs is a good thing because they're going to get another lottery pick, maybe even a chance at a top lottery pick. So Pistons' future is looking great, but obviously Blake Griffin is not a part of it. Now, this is what I think of him as a player. Overall, he's extremely impressive on the offensive end. He can score the ball from anywhere. He's a bit clunky in terms of like his movement. He's not especially as an older player, he's not an agile, wiggly kind of guy. He's kind of clunky in his running, but his ball handling is above average, especially for his size. He's an elite playmaker at the power forward position. Yeah, you heard me correctly. Elite. He passes in the top percentile of passers at that power forward position. He's really, really, really good at it. And he's really good at it on a consistent basis. I think about Blake Griffin. I think about LeBron James. I think about Ben Simmons. I think about Julius Randle. Those are the fours in my mind off top that are really good at passing the rock. Giannis Antetokounmpo is another guy I put in that conversation. Just really, really, really fantastic passers. He is one of them. And when you talk about Blake Griffin, that's what he's really going to bring to a winning organization is facilitation. The ability to make sure that the ball pops from his position. He's going to make sure guys get the ball. He makes others better. And that's a very, very, very underrated aspect of his basketball game. He's a really good rebounder, but at this stage in his career, he's not going to be able to get you the big boards like he used to. He can score very well. You can still pencil him in for 20 points, 18 points, something like that. But his issue now is staying healthy. When he's healthy, we know he holds fantasy value. He's somebody that can help a team. But when he's not healthy, Obviously, he can't do a whole lot for you. So the conclusion is, for a lot of people, that Blake Griffin is done. But I personally think he just needs revitalization. When you're in Detroit, there's not a whole lot to play for. And what all of us fans need to remember about losing teams is that they don't really want to win sometimes. Depending on who's running the organization, 9 out of 10 times, if they're a losing team, they want a lottery pick. And having a player like Blake Griffin, who's obviously looking to win now, he's not going to be very motivated in a circumstance like that. He's not going to be empowered in a circumstance like that. So given what Blake was dealing with, you can totally see why his numbers are down. You can totally see why it may appear as if he doesn't have a whole lot left. But you put him in a winning organization. You put him on the Nets. You put him on the Lakers. You put him on the Nuggets or a team like that right now, the Clippers, back to the Clippers, although I don't think he'd want to go there. But a winning situation, I promise you'll get a lot better out of him than you've been seeing out of him in Detroit this season. I promise you that. Winning situations and veteran environment is really good for a player like Blake Griffin at this stage of his career. I think about the Nets and the Lakers are probably the best 2 places I can think of for him right now, just because he would go there, immediately have an impact role, most likely from the bench for the Lakers, maybe even start with the Nets. But he would immediately have that, but he would also not be asked to take on the old role that he's always had as a leading guy. Nobody's looking at him to jump out the gym anymore. Of course, that's over. Defensively, I really don't know. You notice I ain't mentioned too much about his defense because I honestly have no idea. I'm literally clueless. Since he's played with Detroit, for all I know, he's been a lockdown. I have not any idea how he does on the defensive end. So I'm going to stay away from that. But what I will say is offensively, he can still, at this very second, keep the ball popping. From the power forward position, that's a big thing, of course. So, given what you think of him, obviously it's about health, right? He gets healthy and he can help you. If he's not healthy, he's just not going to play. He's not going to play. So that's really what it is for Blake Griffin. It's not a whole lot to think about. You know what he brings to the table. You know who he is. He's a stand-up locker room guy. He's a funny guy. So he's somebody who's going to fit a happy, winning organization. I think he helps the locker room, especially being that he's been exemplary in a bad situation. So I can only imagine what he would bring to a good one. So he's not lacking in suitors right now. I think I've heard that the Miami Heat are leading front runners for him. I hate it. There's 2 things about the Miami Heat that have to be understood. First of all, they are not their record. They've been riddled with COVID issues and injuries, and they are a lot better than their record. But I think at this stage in the season, it may be a little far. They may be a little too far behind to get the home court advantage necessary to be contenders in the Eastern Conference this year. He's not winning there. Moral of the story, Miami's a talented team who could play their best basketball going forward because everybody should be coming back healthy and they are super loaded. And they need leadership in terms of they miss a guy like Crowder. They missed that type of veteran leadership on their bench. So Blake Griffin could give them a little bit of that, but overall, I just don't think a guy like Blake Griffin should be playing around with his career at this point. Just like Derrick Rose, I hate seeing these guys in situations where they're not going to win. They're playing for hopes and dreams and to make other players, young players, better. Help young players reach their zenith. That does nothing for a vet. That's a trash situation for a vet, if you ask me. And don't get it twisted. I have recommended certain teams bring those vets into those trash situations because you don't give a shit about the player. You care about your players, your youngsters, and these guys help them. But the reality is, for a guy like Blake Griffin who's never won a championship, he should have no parts of any team that's not named LA or Brooklyn, in my opinion. He should have no parts of them. My understanding is that even though the Heat are looking to acquire Blake Griffin, the rumors are his interest is coming back here to play for the Lakers. Back to LA, where he's always wanted to be, where he's always been, and he can come play for the real team. So I think it's a low risk situation for the Lakers, especially if he gets bought out. He's already made money, so I don't think he's looking to take a whole lot from you cap wise. If the Lakers want to go get him, I support that. I wouldn't trade for him, but if we can get him at a decent price, a mid-level exception or something like that, I don't see any harm in that. None. I actually think it would be pretty good to see him down there with LeBron James, being that they're both elite passers. I only think that can make guys like Trez and THT and Wesley Matthews and players like that who he'll be on the floor with much better. So I don't see any harm in that. When you already have a guy like LeBron James who can facilitate, when LeBron sits down, you immediately bring in a big body, superstar-minded player who can also facilitate. Yeah, sign me up. That's a good thing. So that's what I think of Blake Griffin. Obviously, he'll have other suitors as well. We will see if he is traded, what ends up coming of that. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a low-risk situation. I don't think he'll play any worse than he's playing right now. You know what I mean? I don't think he'll be any more or less hurt than he's been all season. So you put him in a situation where you tell him he has an opportunity to get a ring, and I guarantee his eyes get big, and he goes out there and he gives you a lot more than he's been giving Detroit. Respectfully. It just comes with territory. So he will be revitalized. We know he knows how to keep his body in shape. He's naturally athletic, even though he's met with father time. All he has to do is get in shape and learn the system. Once he gets in here, he'll find his role. This is a star, so he's going to know how to find his way, especially in a situation like the Lakers. So it'll get a little frustrating because there will be games where he doesn't play, I think, on a team like this, especially when AD gets back. If he's here, he's going to have games where he just plays 10 minutes and that's it. But when the playoffs come around, I absolutely guarantee you, he'll have a role on this team. And he will be impactful, and he may even hit a game-winning shot for us or something like that. So, yeah, Blake is also a very clutch player. Let's put that out there. He's clutch, and he has gotten extremely, extremely reliable from the three-point line. From the time he was drafted to where he is right now, he's basically pulled a Jason Kidd. He's turned himself into a legitimate three-point threat. So I don't want to end that video without mentioning how effective he is from the behind the arc as a four. You know what I mean? He's really worked on that aspect of his game, and he's been successful. So I look forward to that aspect of his game being brought to our team if he comes here, because we're not shooting the ball that well. In fact, I think we're one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league right now. So anybody who can come here and be a presence from behind the arc, I think, can help us. So that's what I got, man. I also like Blake Griffin because he can play inside. He's one of those bigs who hasn't forgotten how to put his back to the basket. Who doesn't have issues banging a little bit. Now, he was the type of guy to get pushed around even in his prime. He got pushed around by guys you look at him and say, you shouldn't be getting pushed around by him. So that's just kind of who he is. But I've seen him bang. I've seen him put his back to the basket and do little moves to try to put himself in a position to make something happen there in the block. So that always intrigues me when you have players who can do that, because most players this age, in this era rather, can't do it. So, yeah, man, that's what I got for Blake Griffin. Yeah, looking forward to seeing his return to LA. I think it would be poetic justice if he could lift a trophy up in Los Angeles and it not be the Clippers, because they did him dirty as hell. So he's due for some revenge, in my opinion. And I hope he gets it. My name is BDF44, and I'm out.